Hey friends, I hope you're doing well. Hope you got your coffee ready. I've had coffee, but I do not have it with me out here today. It's just beautiful, beautiful day in Indiana. It's 58 degrees. It's really windy. Hopefully the wind doesn't kick up too bad. But I had some people ask me questions, and I figured I would answer these questions today. Had some folks on my Patreon page and my channel memberships here on YouTube asked me some pretty good questions, so I was going to jump into those. Before I do, I have some dates coming up at the end of the month. I'm going to do a short tour with Todd Snyder in the Midwest, and I'll say those dates later on. I'll probably put them in a comment down below somewhere so you can see that. I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully I'll see some of you guys. But we'll go right to the questions here. The first one was a guy asked me, did I ever take guitar lessons? What do I think about guitar lessons and stuff like that? And, I took guitar lessons when I was a kid, and I had a teacher that was, he taught me cowboy chords and stuff. It didn't go much deeper than that. I wish it would have, but I liked him at the time, and it was just a nice thing to go do it. As a young person, held accountable, showing up once a week and seeing somebody play chords, on a guitar, just strumming, just somebody playing Take Me Home Country Roads. It seemed kind of magical. Like, how the hell do they get these sounds doing that? So just hitting a G chord and strumming it was pretty damn great to me. And at the time, I've talked about it before, but there was no internet, and there really weren't very many places for somebody who was under 21 years old to go watch people play instruments in person. So to go do that was pretty great. I don't remember how long I took lessons for, but it came to an end. I won't get into why and all that stuff. But I look back and I really do wish that I would have had, because I've seen some teachers that are just phenomenal. I mean, phenomenal. And I really wish I would have had one of those somewhere along the line. And I've thought for years about taking lessons again. I'd like to. Like, the best guitar players I know, like really great, world-class guitar players, will still take lessons from people. It might be a one-time thing, but somebody that they really think is good and they want to learn a particular thing from, and they'll do it. I remember Kenny Vaughn telling me, I won't say the name of the person, but there was a person that he wanted to take a few lessons from to learn a little bit of that, and somebody I know. And man, if Kenny Vaughn can take some lessons, then the rest of us, we need to be taking lessons. I learned stuff off of YouTube. Man, if YouTube was around when I was a kid, I'd sit and play guitar. I would have a guitar on for 8 hours a day, I'd sit there eating dinner with a guitar sitting in my lap, wanking on the guitar, whatever, like we all do. If there was some structure to that, of actually having YouTube, or we have all these great lessons you can take in your home, but I'm a big believer in taking them individually with a human being, somewhere where you show up at once a week, once every 2 weeks, once a month, and they, look you in the eye and they say, did you work on what I, gave you last week? And then you have to either sit there awkwardly and, I kind of wasted your time and my money because I didn't do it, or you actually work on it and you get a little bit better. That's a big thing. And plus, it's nice, a little human interaction, around something that you dig. I used to give guitar lessons. I was a really crappy teacher. I really was a crappy teacher, but I just wasn't the right guy. I thought I might want to do that, but man, like being around young people who are just completely into guitar, it reminds you of when you were 15 or whatever, and we're just so into it. That part's pretty damn all right. I like that. And especially there was some people that would come in with Beatles songs and stuff like that, and hey, I like the Beatles, will you show me how to play such and such? And then you got these really cool chord structures that you realize how much learning those songs has helped you over the years. with writing songs, and then now you're going to show that to somebody else. That's beautiful. I loved that. I had other friends, people come in and want me to teach them a Megadeth song, and I'm like, man, I would try, but I don't know anything about that world, and I would suck at it. There'd be, that's when I'd start feeling guilty where I wasn't the right person. But I've met some of those people years later, and man, they grew up to be just like really cool, wonderful people with well-adjusted lives. And it's nice to see young people like that, and then realize I didn't do anything to make their lives better, but I was a tiny little part of getting to witness them blossoming. But so yes, I am a believer in taking guitar lessons, and I feel guilty that I'm not taking lessons from someone right now, and I just might sign up. You never know. But also, someone asked me, I've mentioned this before on social media in the past, they asked me if Amy and I still have the contest where neither of us will turn on the heat in the house. We see who's going to give in first, and asking, do you still do that, Otis? And I say, yes, we do. Today, it's 58 degrees out here right now. Probably 10 minutes before I came out here, left the house, I asked Amy what the temperature was outside, and we looked it up. It was 58. I walk over and I look at the thermostat. It's 59 inside our house. It's 59 degrees. We're both very cheap, and we've just had this back when we had no money. Not that we have a ton of money now, but we're frugal people, and we're just like, it's cold. Cuddle up with the dog and put on another sweater. So we go pretty far. It was easier in Nashville because you could get into February sometimes before it was too cold to turn on the heat. It'd be cold in the house, but I don't know. We give in a little bit earlier in Indiana, but it's, early to mid-October right now, and we have no plans of turning the heat on for at least another month. We usually make it to Christmas. So yeah, we're doing that. Do you guys do that? It gets cold in the house. I like sleeping in the cold, but during the day it's a little much, so we bundle up pretty good. We seriously will wear a coat in the house sometimes. Not a big coat, but like a jacket like I'm wearing now. But anyway, another guy asked me, I think this was a channel membership. I like the way he said that. Otis, you seem like the type of guy who would go out of his way not to intentionally offend anyone. And that's true. I don't want to, what's the point in just being an asshole, I'm worried about, I want everybody to be comfortable and happy and all that stuff, so, But he said I wrote a song called Get Me Out of Detroit, and wondered if I ever caught hell from people from Detroit, if they ever gave me crap about that or whatever. And I don't really think about it as a song that goes out of its way to offend anybody, but I was in Detroit. I played Cobo Hall, and I was all excited about playing Cobo Hall because that's where, Kiss Alive was recorded. Bob Seger's, what's the live album? Double Live Bullet or whatever that was called. There were a lot of great live albums recorded there, so Cobo Hall was always kind of a magical place there in Detroit when you're a kid reading liner notes. And played a tattoo convention years ago, and played, and it wasn't all that. It wasn't that great. And I was in the hotel across the street. I just watched the Man with the Golden Arm, which was a Nelson Algren book, which is a great book. I highly recommend. That was turned into a movie, and Frank Sinatra stars in it, and it was the young Frank Sinatra, and it was actually a good movie. It was really good. But he plays a heroin addict that's trying to go straight and get away from the mob and all of that. And so I just watched that movie and just bummed out, man. I had a lot of you got the blues, and you're kind of down about things in my life at the time or whatever, and I wrote that song, but I didn't really think of it. It's kind of You know, like Motown and Chevy is the only good you ever known. That's not the nicest thing to say about Detroit. I actually love Detroit. But I never had anybody give me crap about it. But I had a lot of fans that would, you know, tease me about the song. And one thing I said to him, I commented underneath it about, we recorded that the band was live. It was recorded here in Indiana at Queen Size Studio. My buddy Vess Rutenberg engineered the session. And we were all in one room playing and live. So we record it, and it felt really good. There's things about that recording that are flawed fidelity-wise. You know, there's just things about it. It's not a Steely Dan record, thank God. But nothing against Steely Dan. But the vibe and the feel was really good, and it felt kind of honest. But I sang, everything about it's live. I sang the wrong line somewhere in the song, and I don't remember which line it was, so I haven't listened to it in forever. But I don't trust people to listen to their own records after they're released. It just doesn't seem like a healthy thing to do. But anyway, there's a little bit of a joke to that, but I do believe I don't listen to my own records. That's for you guys. But I sang the wrong line at some point, so I'm like, we'll just punch that in, the vocal, and I'll redo it. And then I realized it's all in one room. Everything's bleeding into everything else, which is part of why it felt good, I think. But my vocals were in the drums, like the drum mics, so we couldn't remove that. And when I sang a different line, you could tell there's two people singing different things. So I just left it and said, screw it. That's an honest recording of those people in that room in that moment. And I always thought that felt pretty good on that particular record, just people playing live to tape and living with it. But that's my Get Me Out of Detroit song. I don't play that in the acoustic sets because I just never thought it really sounded that great by myself. So I don't play that one very often by myself, but when I do band stuff, I try to play that. Always like, okay, we're going to play that because it's band. But I don't even know if there's a version of that on YouTube, like the album version. If there is, I'll put a link in the comments down below. But we'll move on here. Someone asked me, hey, Otis, I get this one a lot. What's the difference between playing gigs, like touring over in Europe? What's the difference between that and the United States? And are there any differences? Is one better than the other? Blah, blah, blah. Okay, most of what I do by myself. You know, I play solo acoustic. So if you're doing that, as many of you can attest, it's really helpful and nice for the enjoyment of everybody in the room if people shut up and listen. You know, if audiences are quiet and attentive. At my end of the food chain, there are listening rooms, you know, in the States, but they're spread out so far away. It's kind of hard to go hit all of them. But I could go to England and I can play 9, you know, we'll say the UK. Where I can go there and play 9 or 12 gigs in listening rooms, you know, in a area that might be the size of Georgia. So imagine, I know that scale's wrong. That's the wrong sizes, but we'll say Ohio and Indiana or something. But imagine if you could go to Georgia and play 8 or 9 really good gigs in listening rooms where 80 or 100 people show up and sit quietly and listen and enjoy it, and they know your songs. And it's that easy to get around to those things. That would be a really, really good thing. So that's really cool, and I like that. And I could do that in different parts of Europe. Like I just went over into the Netherlands and played probably, I don't remember how many gigs I played, 6 or 8 or 9 or something like that, in an area about the size of Georgia. And they were wonderful gigs and they were fun. I had a good time with it. And if I could go to Georgia and do that, I would. But that doesn't really exist there. And plus there's some kind of if you're a person in Spain which my friends in Spain might be watching this, but if you're a person in Spain who has a guy from Indiana come over and sing these songs that you like, that's probably a pretty neat special thing that people, or somebody from Kentucky come over, that people in Kentucky might not appreciate the same way a person in Spain does. So maybe a person from Spain comes over to Kentucky and plays, and we might think that's kind of interesting, and we might appreciate it more. There's a little bit of that. But there's something beautiful about, like in the States, when you play like some of these theater gigs, people really are quiet and they're nice. And like the Todd Snyder gigs, the audiences are absolutely wonderful. I mean, really wonderful, and they pay attention and they're great. And so there's a lot of those kind of gigs, but I'm just not on that end of the food chain. That's just, and a lot of us, a lot of you watching, aren't on the end of the food chain where you could draw 80 or 100 people in a lot of different places either. You're just doing what you can. But that's the biggest difference for me. And plus, when I first started doing it, I'll say this: you can play to your friends in your hometown, and you might have a really good gig, and everybody might be there and really enjoy it, and they're being nice. And I've always enjoyed that and appreciated it. I'm really fortunate where I've always had that, like here in Indianapolis, where there'll be a good crowd come out and we have a really good fun time and all of that. But those are people who are invested in me personally through years of knowing each other. It's just, it's just what, that's the way that is. If you drive or you go to the other side of the world and you play to complete strangers who have absolutely no reason to care about you at all, they don't know who you are before you, especially if you're opening for somebody, and they don't have any reason to like you at all, but then it goes really well and they like you, that feels great, because that feels like you stepped into that gig and you earned it. There's no preconceived notions. Nobody has any prejudices about you whatsoever. Either they like it or they don't. Either you put on a show that they enjoyed or they don't. And I've always been really good in those situations. Well, I feel awkward saying that, but I'm saying that humbly. But I've always been good at walking into those situations and doing well. If you get a chance, people shut up to begin with. That's a really, really good feeling. And I don't know, I hope that you guys get to experience that feeling. I hope you have experienced it, and I hope you get to experience it quite a lot in your lives, because it's there's not a lot of rewards sometimes to being, a musician, songwriter, traveling, troubadour, folk singer, whatever. Sometimes it's not the most rewarding thing financially or whatever, but it does have its rewards, and that's one of them. It feels really nice. I feel like I've gone on way too long about that, but let's see what else we got here. Can you tell us, I had a few people ask me why I play a Martin D28, and I'm going to do some kind of, I've been meaning to do this for a year. I'm meaning to do like one of these rig rundown type videos where at a gig I show this is what I play through, and the truth is I'm a bit of a minimalist, and I don't like to have big complicated rigs. One thing, I think it always sounds worse. The more complicated it is, the more simple it is. For me, it seems like it always sounds better. And so like the most simple thing is to me to stand here and hold a D28 and play to a person standing right in front of me. That's the way that guitar is going to sound best, unless it was in a room, like a wood room or something like that. As soon as you start introducing electronics and the PA and all of that stuff into it, it just gets way more complicated and it doesn't sound as good. But so I want to go through a lot of the concepts of why I use what I use, and I'm hoping to, I've been saying this forever, and I apologize I keep putting this off, but I'm hoping to record that on one of these Todd Snyder dates. I meant to record it in some of the Netherlands dates, but I'd show up and sound check, and then it's like, all right, doors are going to open, and there's just not any time to do stuff. There's not enough time on that tour, and but there'll be more time on this, I hope. But the D28, I just wanted a Martin. Back when I got it, I wanted a nice guitar. Sorry if the wind's getting in the mic. I hope it's not too bad. I wanted a nice guitar. I wanted a nice old Gibson, like a J45, or I wanted a Martin, like a D18, D28. There's a few different things I'd been happy with, and I was having a hard time, finding anything because it was pretty expensive then. My buddy Dean Metcalf, who I did a couple of videos with him where we're showing the Les Paul and then the 180-year-old Martin guitar. Dean, he's a producer of the Bob and Tom Show. I've known Dean for years. He's a great guy. He's got a pretty great guitar collection. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that or not, but he's got a pretty great collection. And years ago, I was just, hey, Dean, I wanted a Martin. I'm looking for one. And I really didn't have much money. And so he kept his eyes open, and one day somebody contacted him and they wanted to sell a D28. And it was somebody in a situation that needed money, and they were going to sell it for $850. And Dean bought it from him and then called me and said, hey, I got this Martin for $850. If you want it, it's yours. It was like late 70s, and I'm like, all right, man, I'll buy it. And it was kind of hard for me to come up with $850 right then. It was quite a while ago, but that's the kind of friend Dean is, where he could have turned around and sold that for twice that then. But he knew I was looking for one, and he hooked me up, and I appreciate that. And at the time, it was a guitar that I thought, okay, if something happens to this, it's not like it's some irreplaceable thing. I can travel with it, and hopefully nothing bad happens, but if some terrible thing happened, it'll be all right. And then 20-something years go by, and all of a sudden it gets lost in Amsterdam, and I realize that thing kind of is special to me. I can't just replace that. So anyway, but that's why I have a D28, is it's what I was able to buy, got a really good deal on back then. I would get another one. It sounds great, it plays great, but it's not some pre-war Martin that costs, as much as, more than what my grandparents paid for a house. But anyway, I'll talk more about that in my rig rundown, I hope. And what else do I have here? So, what's the best and worst gig story that I've never shared with you guys? I don't know what I've shared and what I haven't. I've stood and talked in front of this camera so many times that I honestly don't remember the stories that I've told and the ones that I didn't. And I apologize for that, but I don't remember. And that also sounds like maybe I've told a couple of the same stories a few too many times. But here's one that pops to my head I don't think I shared. I once played a gig. Somebody was putting together, I like this on the surface, I probably wouldn't do this now, but at the time this sounded kind of fun. Somebody was going to make a little music festival where they rented a pay lake. And you guys know what a pay lake is, where you pay to go fishing for catfish or whatever, some pond. I'm guessing that's all over the United States and not just a Midwestern thing. And my friends overseas, it's kind of the great melting pot, at least when I was a kid. There'd be a big pond, like a lake, and every inch of shoreline there would be poor people fishing. They'd pay $5 or $10 to sit there all night and fish for catfish or carp or whatever. There were poor white people and there were poor black people sitting right next to each other, and it was not really the place where you saw that happen in society, in other parts of society, that often. But I can remember an old guy giving me these dough balls. I was catching nothing. And he's like, hey, he's got some special recipe for weedy balls and for carp. And this old cat gave them to me, and I just started catching them left and right. I was like, man, what is that? I can't tell you what that is, but I'll give you all of it that you want. He wouldn't share his recipe, which is great. But anyway, somebody put together a music festival at a pay lake. They rented the whole pay lake. They set up a stage. The problem was, I don't remember what month it was, but it was like late October, and it got really, really freaking cold. And I went on stage wearing a full on stage. This is outdoors, some piece of wood, probably on, I say stage, probably on cinder blocks or something. I get up there playing wearing my coveralls that I go ice fishing in, and could barely. I mean, the neck of my Les Paul was so unbelievably cold, and I did the deal where, you cut the fingers out of your gloves and tried that. Just absolutely freezing cold, and guitar wouldn't stay in tune. Looking back, I had old '63 Bandmaster that I can't believe I fired it up and let the tubes go from freezing to hot that fast and actually expect it to work, but it did. But it was 18 degrees, and there were about 15 people there, and it was kind of funny and fun, for a little bit, and then that 30 seconds went by, and then there was like the rest of the 45-minute set of just freezing. Freezing, and like the 15 people there were just all dudded up, and it was an endurance test. It wasn't exactly it wasn't a gig, it wasn't some big happy festive thing. There's only like 15 people gonna show up when you have a Pay Lake festival and it's 18 degrees, and there's ice forming on the top of the Pay Lake, so you couldn't even cast if you wanted to go fishing. But I don't think I've shared that on this channel. Maybe I did on the podcast once. I don't know. But let me tell you these Todd Snyder dates while I'm thinking about it. It starts on October 28th in Kansas City at Knuckleheads. October 29th in Omaha at the Scottish Rite Masonic Center. October 30th in Des Moines, Iowa at Woolies. Halloween, October 31st in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, Pablo Center at the Confluence. That sounds like a hipster band, Pablo Center at the Confluence, like a album title for. That actually sounds like a Rush album title now that I think about it. But anyway, on November 2nd, Iowa City at Englert Theater. November 3rd in Chicago at Park West. I'm looking forward to all of these dates. Cops are coming for me. I'm looking forward to all these dates, but it'll be great to be in Chicago. I haven't played in Chicago since pre-pandemic. So, and then the 4th, November 4th in Madison, Wisconsin, the Barrymore Theater, and November 5th in Grand Rapids, Michigan at the Intersection. I looked on Google Maps and it looked like I was supposed to go across a ferry from Milwaukee to, I forget, somewhere in Michigan. I don't remember where, but I think the ferry's closed. I'm really hoping the ferry's open, so I would rather just take a ferry ride across Lake Michigan any day of the week, but I might have to drive down through Chicago and come back up the other side of Lake Michigan. But those are the dates. They have not been announced yet, I don't think, so you might have heard it here first, maybe. I announced it on my Patreon and my YouTube channel memberships, which you guys should think about becoming members of one of those. It's a great community. It helps make all of this possible, and bunch of nice people, and it's good to be around them. But I'm going to go ahead and turn this thing around, and if you guys have more questions you'd like for me to answer, feel free to leave them down below. It's not, if I don't answer them, it's not because your questions suck. It's because my answers suck. People are hoping to be entertained when they click on these videos. And if I don't have something entertaining or enlightening or informative or whatever to share, then what's the point? So don't take it personal if I don't answer your questions. But anyway, I hope you guys have a good day and good weekend, and I'll see you down the road. Much love to you.